All right, welcome back to Morning Live, and you're talking about the issue I mentioned to you earlier before we took a break. The government is now keen on the betting firms to now remit their taxes. It seems like there's a loophole as far as now the tax remittance is concerned. Now in studio, I'm joined by Michael Kwambo, a sports analyst in this country for quite some time. He's been in the rugby scene, seen it all. And of course, our very own Mark Bichachi, who is our Tuesday analyst right here on Morning Live. Karibuni sana. Good morning. You know, I called you Bana Ali. This guy was awake at 4.
What you exaggerating? It was 5 a.m., man. There's a difference between 4 and 5.
You guy, hey.
There's a thin line between
playing rugby.
What do you do? So he's playing rugby.
Rugby in the dark.
Karibu sana, Mark. All right. Yeah. Karibu sana, Kwambo. And of course, this talk about betting farms, we've had it before. And trust me, once again, it's back. Now this, I think, let's say it's back with the bang. Now they're following up on the figures. Now, with this scrutiny, there might be some loopholes as far as now remittance is concerned, Michael, and we'll be seeing now some actions also being taken by the betting firms. What do you think now will be next up for our betting firms?
Well, we had Matiang'i's directive yesterday, and he was clear. And you know, he never is wavering.
Yeah, he never means
in the way he speaks.
Yeah, sure.
So I think for the betting firms, they will have to actually comply with the directive, and it would be interesting to see who doesn't make the cut on 2nd July, because they've been given up to 1st July. Yeah.
Okay. Betting control, they're crying foul that indeed these guys are not so straight, and 400B profit, and then you remit 40 billion as a tax. That's quite something, because already allegedly those are the figures actually. Now that means these guys will have to do a good homework to make sure they have their papers very ready, Mark.
There's a number of things. If you watch movies, you will know that there's a direct connection between crime and gambling. If you've been careful, it's because
yes.
No, it's true. If you looked at the papers yesterday, Kenya was ranked together with many other countries as a money laundering hotspot, and one of those money laundering places, and Matiang'i talked about that, is betting, because you can say he can come and spend 10 shillings in my casino, in my whatever I'm doing, but I can declare he gave me 100 shillings because I did not give him a good in exchange. There is nothing he took home, and therefore it's not only a conduit for tax evasion, but it's also a conduit for money laundering. And a lot of outfits out there exist because of trying to clean up corruption money in this country. The third thing is there's a lot of capital flight out of this country. Many of these firms are majority held by foreigners. They don't even hold a Kenyan account. Most of the money is wired directly offshore. The other thing is this is money that is mostly taken out from the poor. It is not mostly the wealthy who are spending everything they have gambling on a Man U versus Arsenal match. It is guys who have 1,000 shillings between them and the next miracle, and they decide to spend that 1,000 shillings on gambling. Then it has the ripple effect. 2 years ago, you saw the report that there were young kids in high school, in primary school, who were gambling because of where these machines have been placed. Then you've got to consider as a government, what is the net effect on the society for which you are in charge of? So what is the net effect of a father who does not pay rent simply because he spent the rent money on gambling? And then how does that affect school fees? So Matiang'i's directive comes in time. There are many reasons why he did that, and there are very important reasons for the country.
Okay. Now, Kwambo, you've been seeing media houses, not even media houses, actually betting firms, really pumping money on sponsorships, sports sponsorships, rugby, of course, Kenya Premier League. We've seen so many things in terms of even some CSR activities, which are not, of course, consistent. But their cry when that tax came in, the taxation came in, they pulled out from some teams like the Kenya Rugby. The KRU suffered big time. Some teams suffered in this country. And just to mention about a few, do you think even this time round, some people will suffer? Because already, that means this guys, it's open, it's clear, by the way. When you mention 400 billion, and then the remittance is 40 billion, there's something amiss.
Obviously, there is something amiss when you mention those figures, but back to your question in terms of the pullout, I do foresee that happening, because I was at the Kenya Rugby Union when our betting, there was a betting firm which sponsored the Kenya Rugby Union and pulled out, and it basically bankrolled the operations of the union, much more than just the sponsorships of teams. This was something that was far-reaching. It went into so many aspects of the organization in terms of running the secretariat and so on and so forth. Their cry was the double taxation, because they're already paying the corporate tax in addition to this other 35% taxation, which they felt was punitive. Hence, they pulled out. Of course, after reviewing, they had to weigh what matters for them. And obviously, rugby was not top of mind, because in light of the taxation, I think what was more popular for them was football. Obviously, the eyeballs that come with the sponsorships and obviously doing your own aims. In terms of the pullouts, they will be there. I see that happening, and much as there's the gambling aspect of it, I think the betting firms have done one thing which corporate Kenya has not done. They've been able to invest in extracurricular activities, mainly sport, and it probably is a wake-up call to corporate Kenya and to the government as well to end the rhetoric and actually take sport and other extracurricular activities seriously.
Now, Bichachi, there's an issue about the figures. Of course, I mentioned 40, but it's actually 4 billion. It's even now worse. 4 billion out of 400 billion. That's quite something. And the betting control, they've been kind of doing some homework on how these guys are remitting. And the CS said he doesn't need the certificate of tax compliance. He needs papers to show consistency on how you've been remitting your taxes. Now, that's kind of some work and, of course, scrutiny in this situation. Certificate of tax compliance, you can get it. You can get it, of course. There's a problem in terms of just even the trust. Why is the CS so tough this time around that he needs the exact papers on how you've been remitting, either monthly or maybe how you've agreed? He doesn't want the overall generic presentation.
There are two reasons for that, but let me first just jump on the question that he answered. This idea that betting firms were supporting local sports, it must be weighed against the effect of betting firms on this country. And you will quickly realize that that was simply putting a bandage on cancer. The truth is, what they are taking out of this country, even plus that 35% tax, is not equal to what they were giving into rugby and football. That's just the honest truth, okay? If you look at the takings in some of the games, was it reported that there was 900 million recently betted in one day in this country, and awards were less than 100 million. So clearly there was 800 million shillings to be made in a day. The only thing these firms do is run on a logarithm, and they don't play the football, neither do they play the rugby. So clearly their factors of production are much less. So yes, in fact, part other than tax, they should have been compelled to support. The law should have also said they must put a certain percentage of their money on certain sports. But that being said, let's understand a few things. That number one, tax evasion and tax crimes in general should be frowned upon. Because every single shilling that is not paid in tax, it's not as if it's staying in this country. It's not like when you and I do tax evasion. At least it remains here. We build a house, we do whatever. Much of this money is leaving this country. And it's leaving this country from the pockets of the poor. Okay? So we need to be very clear that, and I know a lot of people have romanticized betting. There are people who've opened offices in Nairobi to bet, but I want to remind them that the house always wins. Whether it's a physical casino house or it's a M-Pesa number or whatever, it always wins. And those winnings are leaving this country. That's the biggest problem, that a lot of this money is leaving the country. Now, speaking of the secretariat, let me tell you, what is a secretariat that has less than 20 people? How is it going to manage firms that are in the hundreds?
Okay.
How is it going to oversee these activities? They are too few. They're understaffed and under-resourced. That's the reality. And part of the reason they are understaffed and under-resourced is because of these payments not coming through. So what we need to address, it is not enough to tell, if you tell Mark Bichachi to declare to you how much money he makes, then I will go find, the first thing I'll find, it is not hard to find an audit trail. I'll spend more time hiding what I have earned, because you cannot expect me to oversight myself. It does not work. So the problem is that the regulatory authority is understaffed. It does not have enough people working in that secretariat. The board does not even meet often enough. Once a month will not solve these problems. And then you're expecting them to handle billionaires. So how is that going to work?
Okay.
You earn peanuts and then you're going to tell a billionaire to pay tax. That's a recipe for, we know what happens in this country.
Now, the CS said 500,000 youths are taking mobile loans just to bet, and they're listed on CRB very early in their lives. And it's courtesy of now being kind of the gluttonious effects, whereby now you really just want to make the quick money. The odds are tricky at the same time. You don't know how to maneuver through, so you end up lending. And then now you lose that money. No payment, and then you're listed. Now also the youth, Kwambo, people who are very, very key in actually betting, they are the most like, wow, they're the victims here. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and it's very addictive, according to so many people out here. So 500,000 youths in this country listed because of betting. That's a research by the government. What do you think about now? Is it a matter of now just regulating the betting firms, or now a matter of now regulating even our people, the young men and women who are taking this?
Will regulation really help? Because fine, you may get rid of betting, but what other opportunities are there for these youth in terms of expressing themselves, wanting to live better? I think the betting, going into gambling, for lack of a better word, is as a result of them not having hope. You sit at home, you want to make a quick buck, which is another thing. I mean, we've grown up we've seen this generation all about the quick bucks. So, I mean, if you can make your money, whatever way you can, well and good. There's no pathways to a better future. And fine, betting may be regulated. What about alcohol, for that matter, or drugs? I think we need to have a good environment, because restricting this will not cure the problems which are with the youth, which are endemic, the unemployment, the hopelessness. Once we get those opportunities, I think we should be able to mitigate. Secondly, for the banks and the mobile loans, I mean, they're actually tempting. You go onto your phone and boom, there's an app there telling you, 5,000 shillings today. What will you do? You'll actually go for it. I do not know whether everybody is going to bet.
And I know people who are addicted to these mobile loans.
They are addicted. Names, But if you go to some of these popular clubs in Nairobi, and people are using drinks that are more expensive than their phones, it is what it is. We need to get a lot more right than just regulating.
Because a winning can actually take you. Well, interesting. We'll talk about that after the break. Let's just take a short break. But Kwambo is alluding that there's so many expensive drinks on the table than even your phone. So people are wondering, why are you leaving for the moment? Anyway, we're taking a short break. When you come back, we continue this conversation. But remember, we also want to talk about the East Africa situation, where Tanzania is contemplating now to crack down on forex bureaus that are allegedly used to money launder. Now, it's a situation where by now the government is saying it's weakening also their shilling. So Mark Bichachi will remain in studio at that time to talk about all this. So we're coming to you after a short break. All right, welcome back to Morning Live. And at the break, you're talking about these about the betting youths, and it's clear. Some people even pay their bills for the betting, and that means you're risking everything. Some people win, And then when they win, they go back to the same betting, and then it's all washed. Yote. Inaenda. Anyway, conversation for another day. Now, the solutions to this. Once you've talked about controlling the betting farms, now the bigger picture is now taking care of the youth who are now into this business like fully. Some people, I'm told, they're not even employed. Some people now research on the odds. They have to sit down and research on the odds. Not a bad thing. You're trying. You're a love of sport, of course. You love sport. Arsenal playing against Newcastle like last night. I'll give Arsenal. Of course, you risk putting at a time 3,000 bob, and then the winnings come in. But the odds are kind of low. You see how these things are played. Now, do you think it's also kind of tactical with the bookmakers who now make a decision on how? For example, Real Madrid is playing Gor Mahia. Just an example. Yeah, and then Gor Mahia has 26 or maybe 88. That means when you put money for Gor Mahia, the winnings are more. But Real Madrid has maybe 1.00. That means, wow, when you put 1,000 bob, you just get like 1,100. Anyway, so do you think the bookmakers are also trying to really manipulate these people with the fact that you love the sport, but at the same time, you can't really win what you expect to win here?
Well, interesting. I wonder how you got all that information. But
I knew that was coming.
I will not say you bet.
It's because I'm a sports journalist. Yeah.
But genuinely, I said before, the house always wins. Okay. You see, for you are gambling.
Yeah.
The house is doing mathematics.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So whether it's a card game or it's a sports bet, whatever it is, the house has calculated the odds. It's calculated the patterns, human patterns and behavior. It's calculated the footballers and who has an injury and who is in a good mood and who isn't. So they know that for sure you're going to lose. You see, think about it this way. If you look at what's the highest thing, 300 million that has been given out in Kenya, right? So the guy who won 300 million, the various firms collected 9 billion. So out of 9 billion, they gave out 300 million. So who won? Who won? Genuinely. So the truth is, the house always wins.
Absolutely.
Now, one of the things that the country must consider, once people have picked up a behavior, and then you try to make it illegal, they will do the same thing they did with shisha. They will do the same thing that happened with alcohol during the prohibition, and they will do the same thing that's happening with the drugs in Kenya. It will go underground. And it's not so hard to go underground because they'll go online and they'll go put their money direct into Ukrainian, Russian, and American online gambling sites. So the issue here, as Mike said, is very simple. We must begin to address the issue of the psyche of our youth and the psyche of the people of this country. For as long as hopelessness is what we peddle every day in the newspaper, for as long as we do not have a story about success, about being lifted out of poverty, for as long as that is the narrative, then I'll tell you, people will keep doing two things. They'll keep gambling and they'll keep making useless prayers in Uhuru Park. So the two things they'll keep doing. No, genuinely, that's what it happens. You understand? Because either you bet your money on a gambling site or you bet your money on God. There is a reason why Kenyans feel churches. They don't feel churches because they love God. They feel churches because they're trying to escape poverty. Let's be very clear. Wow. So a lot of the money given is given in the same psychology as gambling. Because the psychology of the preacher, he tells you, give God some money, then God will do some mambo jumbo, then it will come back to you, pressed down, shaken together and running over. It's exactly the same promise as SportPesa, BetPesa, all of those things. Exactly the same promise, curing the same malaise. All right? So we need to be clear that unless this country begins to tell our youth who's watching me today how he can make 1 million shillings genuinely and legally, how he can make 100,000 shillings genuinely and legally, and how he can make 1 billion shillings genuinely and legally, they've lost it. Because if you go to Germany, if you go to China, if you go to the United States, they have very predictable results for hard work. Okay. You can be a plumber and be assured of owning a house. A plumber. right? You can be an electrician who fixes people's lights for them, and you can be assured that your kids will go to school and you'll have a roof over your head.
SMS
In Kenya, there's no such guarantee.
SMS is coming in here, and Kwambo, someone from Chicago, Albert from Chicago, says betting has led to an increment in the level of social crime rates, as well as the number of the depressed people in the country, especially the majority losers. So a big yes, betting should be banned in this country.
Well, those are his views. I'll beg to differ. What was there before betting? Crime was still there.
Yeah.
Hopelessness, as Mark rightly puts it.
Yeah.
We don't have jobs, we don't have opportunities, and therefore you need to survive. We're basically like animals going into a primal survival instinct.
Yeah.
So what will you do? You'll resort to the most erratic, the most animalistic of behaviors.
It's
Crime
true.
will go up, depression will go up. Betting, I think, is just an ingredient. It's just a cog.
But winning is sweet, man.
Winning is
Winning is sweet, and then you get addicted.
Yes, you do get addicted,
Yes,
but also going to church is sweet, and being told that you'll get your car today and so have your kids.
Yeah, I saw that, by the way. Who was
Yeah.
that? Anyway, let's not mention names, but
Yeah.
as we winding this up, Kwambo, let's finish this with you before we release you. Do you think now we will see more of pullouts from even now the likes of FC Leopards, Gor Mahia, who of course are key beneficiaries for Sport Pesa and the other betting firms, Betin and all those. It's catastrophic. Rugby lost big time.
Yes,
you were there.
Yeah, I was there. Yes, it lost big time. But if you look at the scripting of Matiang'i's text, it was if you provided proof by the 1st of July. So I will wait and see. Although yes, my instinct is that there'll probably be pullouts, but out of the big brands, I don't know, because I feel, especially for the headline sponsor for both AFC Leopards and Gor, obviously having built a Kenyan heritage, they would want to hang on at whatever cost.
Absolutely.
But now for the others whose heritage is questionable, it remains to be seen whether they will stay, and therefore I see those pullouts happening.
All right. Thank you so much, Kwambo, for coming. Of course, we'll maintain Bwana Bichachi. We go many things about East Africa. Thank you so much for coming, and I wish you all the best, because now, you and I actually, we need to wish you all the best, because now when these guys leave this country, you know what it happens, eh? Yeah, because catastrophic for the players, teams. Trust me, rugby was dwindling, and I don't know what happened.
Maybe just a parting shot.
Yeah.
They may leave well and good, but remember what I said earlier, it's upon corporate Kenya, it's upon anyone with the goodwill to actually step in and support and cut the rhetoric.
All right. Taking a short break. When we come back now, Bwana Mark Bichachi will be in studio, talk about everything happening in East Africa. Stay tuned to Morning Live. All right, welcome back to Morning Live, and trust me, Mr. Bwana Bichachi is actually hilarious in this studio. Now, Mogaka is one of our STOs in studio, and he's also hilarious, so he's confusing me so much. Now, let's shift focus to East Africa, where the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, Major General retired Kahinda Otafire, has described Chandondo East MP Robert Kyagulanyi, aka Bobby Wine, as an enemy of the young generation for always involving foreigners in Uganda's politics. Speaking in Mbarara town at an event to promote President Museveni's sole candidature project on Saturday, Otafire said that Bobby Wine is trying to bring back colonialism to Uganda by reporting President Museveni to the US and, of course, the UK after the Arua municipality MP by-election chaos. Now, Mark Bichachi tells us more on this issue. And, of course, Mark, when you see a situation like this where, of course, the other day Museveni was around, KU students started shouting, "Oh, Bobby Wine, Bobby Wine." Kind of crazy. We didn't expect that. But again, you remember when Bobby Wine was going through a tough time. The demonstrations in Kenya. Yeah. So right now, Museveni's, let me say, friends are coming in strongly to say that Bobby Wine is an enemy of the youth.
Yeah, of course they must say that. And let me first situate the whole thing. First, if you're going to run in any country that is a dictatorship, you have got to have a lot of foreign support.
Okay.
That foreign support, one, keeps you solvent because you will have your money in foreign currency. That's one. And two, they will support you in the country, because what most dictators do is they will either slap you with a huge tax bill, or they will try and freeze your accounts, or they try and manipulate you economically first. So before you see Morgan Tsvangirai as being paraded in the streets of Zimbabwe, his accounts, his access to money had already been locked. So they try and frustrate you from every point. So first of all, Bobby Wine, if he is going to survive, has to have international support. International support, not just by way of Kenyan youth demonstrating on his behalf, but also funding from well-wishers across the globe who want to see change in Uganda. But then the spin always is, and we've had even this spin in Kenya, where it says that if you are an NGO or a politician who's receiving money from outside, then you're basically recolonizing your country. That's not strictly true, because you find people like George Soros, who's supported libertarian movements across the world. He's not necessarily interested in leading those countries. He's interested in seeing his values being pushed ahead. And you'll see this, that the Democratic Party has a non-profit organization that tries to push Democratic Party agendas across the world. Same to the Republican Party, same to the CDU in Germany. All of these entities exist to try and spread ideologies across the globe. So is Bobby Wine a beneficiary of this? Yes, he is. And is it necessary that he is? Yes, it is. Because I promise you, if there was not as much demonstration and as much concern about Bobby Wine would have died the last time he was arrested. So let's not kid ourselves that Yoweri Kaguta Museveni is running a kindergarten for politicians who are against him. You understand?
All right.
It's a police state, and the police will squeeze you where it hurts most to make sure you don't rock that boat.
Now, something else. Now, president for life, appointing your son to head the military.
Yes.
Now, you're lining yourself to some sort of dictatorship also. Yeah, allegedly, they say Uganda, maybe it's a police state, and of course dictatorship is just rife in that country. But you see, when you appoint your son to head the military, that means you know what you're doing. As a guerrilla tactician, you know what you're doing. He's been there before. So do you think the likes of Bobby Wine and the rest of these contestants have a chance just to now disrupt Museveni's agenda here?
You know, Mugabe, we thought he's going to be president for life. What brought him down was a very simple thing. It was trying to appoint his wife as his successor. That's it. And it brought him down. The Arab Spring was brought about by a municipal worker, not even the president, who frustrated a vendor. And the vendor decided that he's had enough and is going to go out with a bang. And it caused the Arab Spring. And he liberated, that one act liberated large populations in Arabia. So we cannot, the thing about being a dictator, and what every dictator should be afraid of, is as you pile straws on the camel, you never know which straw will break the camel's back. And that's the problem. That you can never be too sure what will bring you down. You know, Mugabe was brought down by people he had appointed.
Absolutely,
right? It was not the Morgan Tsvangirai's movement that brought him down. Morgan Tsvangirai died before he saw this. Right? So the seeds of revolution are rife in Uganda, especially in a time of social media. So you never quite know Museveni and others like him what straw will break the camel's back.
Interesting. Let's now shift focus to Tanzania, where the government has come to defense of its energy minister, who has for the past 1 week been turned into a punching bag after connecting electricity to a grass thatched house. Wow. Yeah. Authorities said on Sunday that engineers had devised safety measures that will protect occupants of such houses from harm. According to residents, many houses in the village were poorly constructed, while others had leaking roofs. This, they said, exposed the citizens to the risk of being electrocuted or their houses being burned down due to electric faults. Some wanted the energy minister made the Kalimani to fix leaking roofs and also do away with the grass roofs before supplying the electricity to the houses. And this is very hilarious because now, I believe in Kenya we have such, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, this was done.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, we didn't complain. But Tanzanians are complaining about this. The grass is kind of... I know what they mean, but still, is it a good move? We did it in Kenya. It's happening in various parts of the country. And Tanzanians are crying foul.
Well, there's you know, Africa is an interesting place.
Okay.
It's an interesting place in this sense that what is our priority? And then when we have our priorities, how do we meet those priorities?
Okay.
If someone is living in a grass-thatched roof, is their priority how they are getting food or how lit their house is at night? The argument is made that access to electricity then equals access to information, which is equal access to opportunity. But that's not always the case. And this seems to me like a situation of the cart before the horse.
Okay.
Because if the house is leaking, that tells you these people are extremely poor. And if they're extremely poor, then what basically happens, according to the hierarchy of needs, that you need to settle food, shelter, and clothing before you get to electricity and internet and things like that. That's really how it's supposed to be. So in terms of proper governance, you've got to start with making sure your population is well fed before they're electrified, that they're well clothed before they're electrified, that they are well sheltered before they're electrified. So the Tanzanian people are right to demand that the shelter to which you are providing electricity, is it shelter that is good enough? Because remember, in our nice posh city houses, we still have a lot of electrical fires. So you can imagine an electrical fire in a thatched house. It is a matter of one mistake. Forget about whether it's leaking or whatever. If someone goes and plays around with those wires because they want to connect to their radio or they want to do whatever, there's a probability that that place will burn down. However, at the same time, you then cannot say, because the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Devolution, for example, in Kenya, and Ministry of the Ministry in charge of disaster relief, which is devolution again in this country, need to operate in tandem. So you cannot then say that because these people have not gotten food, let the Ministry of Energy stay back from providing them with energy, because the Ministry of Energy and the Ministry of Housing are very different. So the Minister of Energy should be commended for beating the Minister of Housing to the job.
Yeah, it's true that. Thank you so much, Bwana Mark Bichiche, for coming to the studio.
Thank you,
and of course, always a pleasure to have you. Always on Tuesdays. You know, Tuesdays are your days.
Yeah, you like waking me up.
Absolutely, it's healthy. But there's something else. The drought. How is it on the ground? Just a brief one.
Well, the good news is the old lady I told you about. She asked the chief to phone us. She's back on her feet. She's able to walk again. So that's good news. We are going back next month. We are gathering the goods that we are going to. We're going to visit Yatta, which is a place that has turned around the fortunes of the people. So that's what we're doing. Yeah, very exciting.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We're not taking a short break. When you come back, Barbara Junior will be coming in, and of course with Michael Kwamba. We want to talk about depression in this country. You know, as much as